Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay. Welcome back to the Shadowlands Alpha First Pass First Impressions coverage. The Warrior continues today with the Fury Warrior. And not to confuse with the thumbnail picture that obviously was taken like a month and a half ago before we started all this thing, I was trying to make like an face. But I guess when I was turning my head against the green screen, my artist, the graphic artist Sage, just picked whatever frame had like the best teeth gritting fury face. I don't know. So it's not like it's a shocked face. I mean, kind of it is, because Fury Warrior has a lot of changes. And it probably is the most shaken up warrior of the two, like in the DPS category. The Arms Warrior went up yesterday, so if you want to check that one out, of course, that video is on the channel, on the playlist. Also, everything testing-wise, the video links, the dungeon runs with comms, the overall testing stream, if you want to just sit there and listen to it in the background, it's how we get to all of this coverage. Those are all in the channel guide linked in the video description box right down below. That's where everything goes. I put a lot of stuff into those, so if you want to go look down there, you can. What I also don't put a lot of stuff into, but you have to put a lot of stuff into, at least remembering, every single month, if you have Amazon Prime and you've hooked up your Amazon Prime to your Twitch Prime, you have a Twitch Prime sub. That token does not automatically resub to your favorite content creator. So if you have to go resub to Preach, to Nobble, to Talias and Evitel, to Mr. GM, to me, whomever, with your Twitch Prime sub, this is your gentle nudge to go remember to do that, because if you don't, then Amazon just takes all of your sub money and not one of your creators that you want to make sure they keep creating. So Twitch Prime, don't forget about it. Link for more information, of course, and all the rewards you get for having a Twitch Prime is linked also down below. So the Fury Warrior then. The freaking Fury Warrior then. I had a lot of fun playing both warriors, and I have played warrior. As you see here, these are my Mage Tower swords. I have had a warrior ult for some time now. I usually only prot and maybe a little bit of arms. I don't usually do a lot of fury. I had to sort of learn and re-update myself on how to play fury in Legion to do the Mage Tower stuff, even though that one was pretty easy. But the over-under on warrior is that I have some knowledge on the background, and Fury plays like Fury. And it seems like some of the changes that Blizzard is adding in are not needed. That's the long and short of that. So let's dive into this. I'm going to go over all the other parts first. And the big parts of all of this, of course, is that a lot of utility and some additional survivability for the overall warrior, mostly in arms, is coming across to the DPS warrior in general. And some of the survivability actually for Fury Warrior has actually been taken out. So some baseline things here. For all warriors, you're getting Challenging Shout back. It's a 4-minute cooldown, 10-yard AoE taunt for 6 seconds. Now for Fury, this is like a Death Wish, which you used to have Death Wish, rest in peace. But Challenging Shout will basically just get you killed. Unless, of course, you Challenging Shout right into a Piercing Howl, which Piercing Howl across the board for both DPS warriors now is free, 30-second cooldown, 12 yards, 70% snare for 8 seconds. So you could, in essence, Piercing Shout and then Challenging Shout and then get out of there, right? And then help with the aggro pulling off of someone else, help with some heal in a Mythic Plus dungeon, for example. That could be something that you could do as a warrior in general. Rallying Cry, of course, down here gets 5% more temporary and maximum health. And things, however, you're not likely to use very often, however, in that all, helping tank with Challenging Shout thing, as you see here, Shield Block, Shield Slam, and Slam. Slam for Fury is not a thing. You as a leveling up spell. It might have Torghast powers. I don't know. But for the most part, you're not going to use Slam in the rotation at all anywhere. It's part of the core baseline kit across all warriors. It's part of the leveling up RPG set. Same thing with Shield Slam and Shield Block. There could be a thing where you could Shield Block, Shield Slam. You could swap on a shield potentially. And maybe if you stay in the Enrage window, you can have War Paint to take less damage. But unlike the Arms Warrior, which I went over in that video, they can actually have the D-Stance swap. But you don't have the core background underneath that makes a prot warrior a tank, or makes any tank a tank. You don't have all the passives that make you like not get crit, for example. You don't have the additional armor. You don't have riposte for more parry. And you can't even change weapons in Mythic Plus. You can change weapons elsewhere if you're in a normal mode raid and your tank goes down, and maybe you could save the day. But you're still going to get completely clobberized. So it's something very niche. It could be a thing to help you turtle in arenas or PvP potentially. But you don't have even a higher block chance in the first place. When you put a shield on, and you have 10%. Right? Baseline. You, of course, have the baseline amount of block based on the actual shield. And shield block, of course, makes you block all melee attacks only. But I really don't know how integral it's going to be for the Fury Warrior or the Arms Warrior to have these, other than you leveled up with them. You got them on the way up. It could be a thing. I talked to Archi a bunch about Warrior stuff overall. I had a couple of words that I had with him quite a bit about overall Warrior stuff for DPS. I quoted some things in the Arms Warrior video. There will be more information, of course, coming out from him if you're in the Skyhold Discord. But there are just abilities that you don't necessarily need to worry about in your day-to-day Warrior play, which is strange, but I think overall it probably works out okay. But for the most part, you're going to be Fury Warrioring the same way you normally Fury Warrior, right? You're not going to be doing anything super different on Fury. And there's a couple of things that will change the rotation somewhat. But for the most part, it still feels pretty smooth. Just not going to be Whirlwind swinging around. I'm not really going to get into the whole weirdness about, you know, should you be single-minded Fury or should you be Titan's Grip? Honestly, it's just kind of, sure, whatever. If Blizzard lets you transmog one-handers, sure, but you still equipped two-handers behind the scenes so you could put on other weapons. Why not, really? I mean, all the customization coming into play in Shadowlands, just let Fury Warriors put on one-handers, or put on like a big two-hander main hand and an offhand one-handed sword. I don't know. But I think Titan's Grip is here to stay. I don't know if they're going to change it all. There was some discussion about how SMF may come back, but it does require different math than, say, what they've done with Frost DKs before. So, and then monks are also getting dual-wield in two hands, so it could happen. But realistically, it could just be a cosmetic thing for Warrior. I think many, many, many Fury Warriors would be okay with that. It's just that's how it would work. And maybe even what if Arms Warrior could transmog their big old two-hander into a one-hander. So hold a one-hander with two hands. I don't know if that will work animation-wise, but you know what? Why not, right? It's just a cosmetic thing anyway at the end of the day. All right. Other bits here that you may use are, you still, of course, have Hamstring, which will last 50% snare for 15 seconds. A little bit of physical damage does still cost 10 rage. Of course, you did see Spell Reflection coming in there. So this has the ability to reflect a spell, and you take 20% less magic damage when it's up for 5 seconds. That's a big one. And then, of course, you have Ignore Pain. Ignore Pain costs 80 rage. 80 rage for Fury, because you generate it way faster than an Arms Warrior does. So it is 50% damage goes to your face, 50%, of course, goes to the shield, and the big amount of shield is some weird attack power, versatility, scaling. The math is like this giant sentence, but Ignore Pain is going to be a thing you could definitely see yourself using somewhat for more resiliency. Say if you're going to be hit by a big old spell attack, you could both have the rage for Ignore Pain and put up Spell Reflection to brunt the damage incoming, because otherwise, you know, dead DPS does 0 DPS kind of a deal. And additionally, something that you could see a lot of weird play with, maybe a different less amount with Fury for movement, sure, but not for a defensive value. I go over Intervene a lot more in the Arms video. That target is not a player. You can't intervene to NPCs. No. Intervene, however, now is not intercept. It is a 30-second cooldown where you run high speed towards an ally. I guess, you know, the flask of Torghast isn't an ally. Intercepting all melee and ranged attacks for 6 seconds while the two of you stay within 10 yards of each other. Or basically you within 10 yards of the target you intervened. 25-yard range, again, 30-second cooldown, doesn't cost you anything besides that. It intercepts all melee and ranged attacks against them. Now, I'm going to show you a picture here. Arms Warrior has died by the sword. Fury Warrior doesn't, right? You have Enraged Generation, which, of course, is just that additional health whenever you bloodthirst. and then the 30% damage reduction, which is fine. You can combine it with Enrage Regeneration to sort of intervene at someone and protect them from a bunch of hits. It does not work on spells. It's ranged and melee attacks. But this image here is on an arms warrior intervening the tank with Die by the Sword up, because they have a 100% parry chance when Die by the Sword is active. So that's bonkers. Literally the bonks and the smacks are special attacks. You cannot parry those. Special attacks go through that. There's one melee attack at the very top there that actually goes through because the mob was either behind me or behind the tank I had intervened, because you can't parry once things are behind you, right? It all goes through, so you don't want things to go behind you. So there's a huge oomph for warriors with that. If you're arms, for Fury, it might just be a lot more mobility, but it also could be a way you could help, you know, peel for your healer or get across the map for a little bit faster. Of course, you still have, you know, double time, bounding stride, heroic leap. You're a very mobile, cooldown oriented class to begin with as a warrior, but intervene is another tool in the toolbox. You could obviously intervene to someone to get out of something, right? If there is the fire on the ground and you don't want to stand in it, even though it gives you rage, don't stand in the fire, is that you have more tools there. And that's a lot of what is coming back in Shadowlands in some regards. Some specs are unpruned more than others, but of course blame Mike, because he is the pruner, if you didn't know that joke that came up. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Shattering Throw. Also, big utility. Shattering Throw is going to be ridiculous. Doink. Obviously, it doesn't do anything to you know, this target, but Shattering Throw is going to be really crazy. Now, how this reads: 1.5 second cast, not reduced by haste. 3-minute cooldown, just flat. 30-yard range. You hurl your weapon at the enemy, causing physical damage, ignoring armor, but not versatility, of course. Removing any magical immunities, and it deals 500% increased damage to absorb shields. Now, I have lots of testing on this. I have some notes to go over, so don't freak out too much. It does not work on certain things, and it does not do pass-through damage unless a very specific criteria is at hand. But to go over all the things we tested, we tried powered shields on Priest. If they put up like one powered shield and it crit, the Shattering Throw would almost remove the entire thing, not the entire thing, but then by default, it would remove the entire thing. Frost DKs have their talented like build-up damage equals shield. Same thing with like Warlocks, for example. Soul Leech. You will only do damage to the absorb. If it breaks the entire absorb, you deal 1 damage to their face. There's no pass-through damage. However, this has no interactions with the DK anti-magic shell. It's an absorb, but it's a magic absorb, so nothing there. It will not remove Havoc Demon Hunter's Netherwalk. That's not an immunity. It is a 100% damage reduction, so it will not remove that at all. You'll do 0 damage as well. It will completely miss Aspect of the Turtle on Hunters. It'll just fly right past them. It will not remove Cloak of Shadows on Rogues. Again, it's a magic immunity kind of deal, so it won't work on that one. There is a new pop-up when you do shatter a immunity or a shield. It'll say shattered above their head, which could be just default player text, of course, but it looks really cool when it happens. It'll work on Blessing of Protection and Divine Shield from Paladin. It'll shatter it completely off, as well as Mage Ice Block. Now, if you have a Mage Shield active and you Ice Block, it will remove and shatter your immunity, Ice Block, but not touch your shield. Or if you're a Frost Mage, for example, which most Frost Mage are, which you PvP as most of the time. Fire Mage lightly has come up that's mostly because BFA nonsense, but if you have Glacial Insulation on a Frost Mage, which means that you have a Frost armor that pops up when your Ice Block is broken, that does work properly. You will lose your immunity, but you will have your Glacial Insulation up. Like I said before, though, you will not eat both the Mage armor and the Ice Block. It will do full damage. It'll do 500% damage of the tooltip to other warriors that have Ignore Pain up. But only 50% goes to Ignore Pain, usually destroying the entire Ignore Pain shield. And 50%, whatever's remaining, goes into the warrior's face. So it does a lot of damage. We tried to figure out what damage values were like. And of course, you see here it only does like 530 damage. There's a boss in the dungeon footage if you want to go check out the dungeon footage, of course, for Arms or Fury. On Arms, I tested this out specifically on Tredova. This bug lady inside of the Mists of Tirna Scythe puts up a big old gorging shield, and the Shattering Throw to this 36,000 shield did 5.5 thousand damage in just one cast, which is bigger than any other ability that I can hit it with, right? Because what's Execute even do for? Not even 1,000. So it does big damage, but it does not do any pass-through shenanigans in PvP. And of course, it only removes things that are actual full-on immunities, block, divine protection, divine shield, etc. Initially, one of your spell ranks, of course, your other two, your default spell ranks here, but you have more. You have Recklessness is going to last 2 seconds longer by default. So it'll last 12 seconds, I believe, baseline. Yeah, 10 goes to 12. That'll be nice. Execute will do more damage. Sure, also nice. Other big things here. And let's go to Battle Shout now, is also 5% attack power. All of the raid buffs and debuffs are now all 5%. The debuffs are 5, and Fort, Int, and Shout are all 5% as well. So that's just across the board changes. And again, if you're already a Fury Warrior, you know what your Piercing Howl does on live. So right now, of course, the difference, of course, let me see, it's 10 rage, 15 yards, 50% snare, 15-second duration. But that has changed. You kind of get that same effect when you use Hamstring instead, but that's obviously single target versus AoE snaring. AoE target caps here. A lot of things on melee are AoE target capped. A lot of casters don't have target caps. I wonder why. Well, let's see. Whirlwind is 5 enemies. Where is it? Is it in the base kit? It's in your base kit, isn't it? What the heck? I keep looking at these damn books all the time. I lose where abilities are. Wait, there it is. Cost nothing, of course, for Fury. Too much World of Warcraft. It's 5 nearby targets. It still has the meat grinder effect, where the next 2 single target attacks remains at the target plus 4 additional at half damage. So I was using Siegebreaker in the dungeon footage, so I was doing the Whirlwind Siegebreaker Rampage combination for AoE. And of course, Siegebreaker just was an extra fun button for tunneling extra damage in to do Siegebreaker Recklessness on bosses when you've got the Rampage into double Rampage kind of combination there. So that was fun. That worked really well. And of course, if I got Sudden Death procs, that also, you know, more execute damage into Siegebreaker windows in the Enrage windows, of course, after you Rampage. So stuff like that was pretty good. Bladestorm, the talented version you have, is still 8 targets, same as the Arms Warrior 8 targets nearby. Dragon Roar has no target cap, very similar to Warbreaker on Arms, because Colossus Smash is single target or 2 targets with Sweeping Strikes on Arms, but they let me take Warbreaker, or if you take Dragon Roar, this is all damage to all nearby enemies. So Dragon Roar becomes that, what you hit in your execute window, or not execute window, the Siegebreaker windows or Enrage windows, that kind of stuff, sort of the set and forget kind of single targety thing. I ran with Wrecking Ball in this one because this is also changed, but more on that in just a moment, because Enrage has been cut down ever so slightly. On live right now, the Enrage window is a 25% haste. Now it is 15% haste. So that's a little bit of a cut down in your overall haste scaling. So it slows the spec down just a bit, but it also allows you to maybe care about actually putting haste on some of your gear. Because right now, I don't think does Fury care about haste at all in BFA, because you get so much of it passively. Is that right now in Shadowlands, you might want to actually have a little bit of haste on there, or it might make haste procs, maybe haste enchants, maybe a haste trinket, not as like, ew. We'll see. So a little bit of power lost there. Also, like I said in the opener, a little bit of healing lost. Bloodthirst is now 3% of your health, down from 5% of your health. It doesn't really change anything with Enrage Regeneration. That still adds 20% additional. It just means that you're not healing for 25% of your health in the 2 Bloodthirsts therein that you get in an Enrage Regeneration window. Now you're only going to heal for 46% of your health. Oh, darn. Right? But obviously, it could take a little bit of that sort of ability out of it. But like, again, you could aggressively use your rage to ignore damage with ignore pain, do not need to worry about the healing as much because that's a choice you have to make. You have ignore pain, of course, or rampage to spend that 80 at the top end. But also baseline, rampage is 80 rage, which I just kind of hinted to in the ignore pain thing there. It's 85 rage on live. Now it's 80. That's a slight note. Additionally, now before we get into a whole bunch of numbers, the Fury Warrior right now has a -6% aura in BFA, which means that they zeroed that out and had to reduce some damage numbers in your actual core toolkit. So some abilities look like they have been nerfed, but it's really resetting the aura so that the flat line floating, numerical aura above your head isn't impacting your damage anymore. It's just all in the baseline. So if you have a talent calculator pulled up, or if you're in game right now looking at your talent calculator, or you just know what it looks like, you've lost Carnage, Endless Rage, and Meat Cleaver. Specifically the Meat Cleaver talent. The effect, of course, still on top of the Whirlwind. Equipment calls something different, but I've always referred to it as the Meat Cleaver effect. So you've added Wrecking Ball, which I used today in the dungeon. This is the Becoming Enraged, has a 25% chance to make your next Whirlwind deal 300% increased damage. Big Whirlwind, remember, it is target capped. And then Fervor of Battle. This is, I put as a double single target rage use for your Whirlwind filler. It adds, of course, your slam back into it, just like it does for Arms Warrior. The double single target rage, of course, is adding 3 more to the main target of Whirlwind, because Whirlwind by itself will do, let me jump over here real quick in the rested area. Whirlwind still does the, it does the 3 rage plus an additional 1 per target, so it's 8. And if you take the Fervor of Battle, it's going to be 6 on the main target with the additional up to 5 more, right? Or 4 more, sorry. So that's where you'll gain the extra rage for that one. And of course, it adds Slam in, which you're not going to ever use by default, but it will add an extra bit of single target damage. I've had it targeted this whole time, so when you do Whirlwind, you do get that Slam effect right on the top of it there. Whirlwind does hit 3 times with your main hand and 3 times with your offhand. That's in the combat log just to match the animation. It does only hit sort of once with both. It's just broken up. But then you can see the slam damage right there on top of it as well, which will scale up with your filler and your enrage window, all that good stuff. Additionally, and this is where I'm going to go over to some of Archie's notes on this one, is Onslaught is a new button added that you can put in your rotation. The weird one on Onslaught is, A, it requires you to be enraged. It's a brutal attack that does a heavy amount of damage on a cooldown, and it requires you to be enraged, and it generates 10 rage when you use it. So let me get enraged real quick here, and then blammo. Really cool animation. It's basically just using the mutilate animation, but with 2 big old 2-handers. It does look pretty dang cool. And then it comes back up here again. Blam! Onslaught is neat. It adds something extra, a little bit of flavor to it. Almost feels like the old school Raging Blow, where you had to be enraged to use Raging Blow, which obviously isn't the case with Raging Blow anymore. But again, I talked to Archie a lot about warrior stuff, and he had some comments that he put forward in his giant post over on his Patreon. But he said about Onslaught, this ability feels like a discount mop Stormbolt. While it's not a bad ability by any means, it feels like it's cluttering an already busy rotation, and the damage isn't particularly amazing. Damage-wise, it's about 2 times a Bloodthirst or a Raging Blow, and 80% of a Rampage or an Execute, and therein lies the problem. Fury already has a number of highest priority abilities, and Rampage to dump your rage, Execute during sudden death, as well as numerous general abilities, as like 4 to 5 baseline, and up to an additional amount that you can line up. Things like, obviously hitting sudden death windows, Onslaught, Siegebreaker, Dragon's Roar. You get the idea. So Onslaught might end up good with a tuning perspective, but adding a button simply pushes another out, which creates conflict with other talents such as Inner Rage or Fervor of Battle. And again, it's not bad. It's just not sure what Fury really needs is another medium priority talent button, even if it looks freaking cool, right? That big old chonk. but it competes with Fervor, like we brought up already. And then the new Frothing Berserker is when you reach 100 rage, you will gain 10% haste, kind of giving you back what you lost in your baseline in rage, and 20% movement speed. This is different because currently Frothing Berserker does not do this on live right now. The live version, if I may read it again, is that Rampage will cost 95 rage and increases your damage by 10% and haste by 5% for 6 seconds. This window is a little easier to work with, and it has both utility and damage baked in because of the haste and movement speed. But sitting and waiting for 100% rage is kind of strange. My one thing I was talking about on stream about how this might work is that it might be a Furious Slash kind of build, because with Furious Slash, you are hitting another builder all the time to allow you to, I mean, I'll grab it and talent it right now just to show, is that I don't think Furious Slash gets much play. So maybe they're trying to make a build that would make Furious Slash kind of a thing. But Furious Slash is also the same kind of problem. It is a sort of low priority ability where you do have to, you know, rotate it in, stack it up, stay in the window. But I mean, you can definitely get really quick. But look at how many like core abilities I may have. We got a Furious early there just to make sure we stay in the window. So you have a lot of priority here. I don't need to Furious that early. But I mean, the rotation kind of goes off the rails, which is, I guess, if you're looking for that in your Fury Warrior, then that is sort of the whole point, right? It does, you know, Furious Slash lasts for 15 seconds once you get it stacked up. It just makes it, the roll starts off pretty slow, and Furious Slash does have a bit of a very probably single target style. Let it fall off there just to, you know, illustrate that there's a lot of stuff that goes on. And imagine if you had Onslaught too. But I think Frothing Berserker syncs with Furious Slash potentially in that regard. And of course that would stack with Inner Rage as well, because you would get bigger raging blows and more often while also attacking faster, keeping Furious Slash up while also attacking faster once you hit 100 rage. And then of course you dump with Rampage after you hit that mark, so to make sure that you're in the enrage window. And then you get Wrecking Ball procs and yada yada, and you put Siege Breakers in there, or maybe Anger Management because you can build and spend so much rage faster because you're rotating in the extra haste window and the extra haste window and the extra, you see what I mean? There's something there, right? There's goo. Like I said with Arms Warrior, there's some goo, and there's like how you smoosh it around is very much you're figuring this out, because I'm not a Warrior main. I've played Warrior like I said before, but I don't know how that'll all work out, right? Because there's going to be obviously different situations that you can use for different abilities, but some might work better just to go like with a cruise control for cool kind of Fury Warrior, but maybe the more technical juggling windows more aggressively might, you know, garnish more results, which you'd imagine the harder the rotation to juggle, the better your results may be, but that doesn't always be a thing in WoW, right? It's not always a thing. So we'll see. Other notes here, Impending Victory is buffed to 30% heal, up from 20%, which is actually just really, really big. It's a health stone on a 30-second cooldown that costs 10 rage that does damage. So, good stuff. If you don't need to stun something, or you don't need to have double time, then you can take a huge heal that you can weave into the rotation. And again, on top of things that you can put up like Ignore Pain into an Impending Victory to not only, you know, ignore and absorb some damage, but also heal yourself behind the Absorb Shield. Because again, your baseline absorb is a little bit weaker now. A pretty big one right there. Fresh Meat is totally changed now. The Bloodthirst Enrage chance remains, but now it gets a 100% chance to enrage you on new targets hit with Bloodthirst directly. This is not consumed while using the Whirlwind Meat Cleaver 50% AoE hit synergy. So if you Whirlwind and Bloodthirst and then tab target and then Bloodthirst and then Whirlwind and then Bloodthirst on a new target and keep hitting new targets with a Fresh Meat Bloodthirst, it does work over and over and over again, allowing you to stay in the enrage window during AoE situations almost indefinitely as long as you're hitting a new bloodthirsted target each time, which is pretty fun. It's definitely pretty fun. I was using it just to kill some mobs in the testing stream to see how it works. And it's aggressively in the enrage window. You will stay enraged quite often, which again could also sync up with Frothing Berserker because you'll be in the enrage window more often, which makes the rotation faster, which gives you more rage generation. Rage. Massacre remains at the 35% health window, but for Fury, you get 1.5 second cooldown off of your Execute. Execute for Fury still remains a rage generator with a cooldown, so Massacre gives you a cooldown reduction on your Execute if you'd like to use that. Sudden Death's also been bumped up to 1.70 RPPM times haste, up from 1.69. Peppa hands, I have no idea. Sure. It's a slight increase in sudden death procs, but only 0.01. I don't know. That's like one more proc over the course of a 10-minute fight. It's so, whatever. It's a math thing. But that is the Fury Warrior. A lot of little hook changes. Potentially good, potentially unnecessary, but overall, more utility, more mobility, more survivability, a little less in your overall healing. But I mean, again, Spell Reflect and Ignore Pain, for example. All of this coming into play here. Shattering Throw coming back with the interactions therein. That is the Fury Warrior. Oh boy. So if you've enjoyed the coverage, of course, so far, and you've watched this entire freaking video, and you'd like more people to watch the coverage that I have here on the channel, consider hitting the like button. It is the best way for YouTube to tell the algorithm, or you to tell the algorithm on YouTube, that this is some good coverage, good analytics, good educational potential entertainment about all the Shadowlands coverage I have going here on the channel, and for the algorithm to show it to more people. So thank you very much if you choose to do so. And additionally, of course, the video description box has the entire channel guide, and down below in the pinned comment, you will see the more information about Twitch Prime, Amazon Prime. Don't forget about your Twitch Prime tokens. Make sure you re-up them to Nobble or Preach or T&E or Mr. GM or whoever is giving you your coverage right now. Me, whoever you'd like to over on Twitch, so that your whole Twitch Prime sub doesn't just go to Amazon. Because if you don't use it, then they take all of it and it doesn't go anywhere else. So there's Twitch Prime for you. We got Protection Warrior coming up next. Thank you all for listening again. My name's been Bay. Warrior stuff. 2 Warrior videos back to back. I'm out of breath.